Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a 90-minute art challenge and I'm going to answer a bunch of questions. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing just a recording of answering some questions, and I'll be playing it on screen here while I do this process of a 90-minute art challenge. This is something that Bobby Chiu from Schoolism kind of dreamed up, I guess, and has been inviting other artists to take part in. I saw a video of him where he was talking and answering questions while his video was playing, and I was inspired by it, and I thought it would be a fun kind of process for me to go through as well. So I did this 90-minute challenge and painted this portrait in 90 minutes, which was really a challenge and really revealed a lot of stuff to me in terms of my practice and my skill set and my current, I guess, level of skill. So I think it was a really valuable experience and exercise. And I kind of reached out to my patrons on Patreon and just to some people on social media to, I guess, gather some questions that I could use as talking points to have as a backdrop to this. So I'll go into those questions and try to answer them as best I can. This is unrehearsed, so I'm just going to kind of look at the questions and answer them as honestly as I can. So I'll start here. Yeah, the drawing was challenging. You'll get to see the whole process here from start to finish, which is kind of cool. I timed it on I used I think it was my iPad or my phone as a timer, and I just used that basically to track my time on the project. And I just stayed with grayscale. I didn't go into color. I just wanted to kind of reduce the variables for myself to kind of give myself a chance to focus on structure and lighting. The photograph is really well lit. The lighting in it is quite interesting, so I wanted to kind of focus down on that. I also didn't know if I would have time to integrate color in 90 minutes. So I worked two ways. I have done in the past, worked up a piece to near completion in grayscale and then used color over top in transparencies, just to colorize it and then paint over top of it to just bring some more life to it. And then I also will oftentimes just paint straight ahead with color. And that works really well for me either way. But in this case, I just wanted to eliminate the variable of color and just focus on the tones and the structure. So that's what I did. So the first question I had was from Chaya Ilyup, I think is I don't know how you pronounce it. It's from Instagram. So thank you for responding to my story. The question is, what is your favorite piece that you've created? So, that's a really hard thing for me to answer. I've created a lot of work over the years. I went to college and took 2 years of fine arts training and did a number of pieces in college that I really liked, was really proud of. I think it's also contextual in relationship to the time of when I created them. So maybe I need to think of what's my most favorite sort of current work that I've created. And there was someone else who asked me that same question. I'm honestly not entirely sure. I'm not sure that I can answer that. I am really, really proud of some of the ones that I've created that are specifically for my own story universe that I've been writing and working on. The novel or the book is called Echoes, and I've kind of been doing my own art on the side. Originally, I had kind of planned to do a series of paintings that would tell the story just from a visual perspective, like a kind of a story arc, just through painting, solely through the imagery without any text attached to it whatsoever. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Matt Rhodes, but he's an artist. I'll put a link here to a video, or I don't know if he's got videos up on YouTube. Anyways, I'll put a link either in the thing below or in a card here on screen. And that will be basically point you towards Matt's work. I'm just going to make an annotation of that so I don't forget to do it. But Matt just finished 3.5 years of doing something similar to that, where he created a story universe and strictly through imagery. It's really amazing and such a incredibly massive undertaking that I just don't know if I would have the discipline or the time to do that, honestly. Now that I look and think on things honestly and reflect on it, it's crazy volume of work. But really something special. I also just received this in the mail, which my business partner got for me, from Gregory Manchess, Above the Timberline. And this is a similar kind of process. He wrote a story, and then he did like 120 pages of paintings, or 120 images, I should say, like painted images that are integrated into the story. So they tell the story alongside of the text. It's incredible, beautiful work. I don't know if you're familiar with Greg Manchess's work, but he's a painter. He works traditionally with oil paints and just does beautiful work. He's more about form and the brush strokes and stuff than he is about rendering. But really inspirational. I love it. Anyways, I'm really proud of some of the pieces that I created for my story universe, for Echoes, for the book. And I think eventually what I will do is probably continue writing and maybe do something similar to what Gregory Manchess has done. Maybe a combination of story and imagery. That's like a long tail project, something that's kind of a future endeavor for me, something I'm going to kind of whittle away at over the years, because I think there's two aspects to it. I feel like I'm not confident enough yet or skilled enough to achieve something like that in the expediency it would require, or the level of skill, the level of completion, and what I would want it to be. I think I've got a lot of growing to do before I get to something like that. But it is definitely something that's on my radar and something I would like to do eventually. So yeah, I think probably one of the first paintings I did in that story universe, I won an award for it. I won an award for a couple of the pieces I did for that story universe through Applied Arts, just as a self-promotional, in the self-promotion category. And I'm proud of that. And I think the work is strong, and I think it's worthy of the awards that I got. So that makes me happy. It doesn't usually happen. But they're figurative, and there's some more rich backgrounds within the figure work, or in combination with the figure work. And I feel like they're actually some of the earlier digital paintings that I had done. I think for each one I used a combination of Photoshop and Corel Painter. And my computer really struggled to create the pieces at the time. I always found that Corel Painter was kind of, processor heavy. It would kind of lag and be a little bit slow. Brush strokes would kind of chunk across the screen sometimes. But I am really proud of those pieces. I think it's also the process that I was happy with. Just kind of like going from sketch to getting all my photo reference, like photographing myself in costumes or other people in costumes and stuff, and really getting all that together was really good. So yeah, those are probably some of my favorite pieces. I'll maybe put a link below if I think about it to some of those online. House mature, I don't know, somebody else from Instagram. They asked me, so in my description on Instagram for this finished piece, I put, when I did the call out for these questions, I put a note in there saying that there's errors that I see flipping back and forth between the finished image and my painting. And the question is, that I mentioned errors, and they say, as someone completely oblivious to art, what do you think are bad errors in this piece? So I think there's like two parts to this, pieces to the answering this. The first piece is, I actually don't believe in bad errors. I think errors are good because they reveal to me where my skill set is at and where I need to make improvements and changes. So I don't think there's anything really bad about errors. I think it informs my seeing and hopefully helps me to grow. So errors aren't necessarily bad. I think there are structural errors in this piece, which will be hard for you to tell right now looking at the piece where it's at in terms of the process. So I think maybe what I'll do is I'll circle back to that answer at the end when the piece is finished, so you can kind of see more clearly. I can point out more clearly what I'm talking about. So I'll do that. I'll come back to it. But yeah, errors are good. Errors are part of the process. If you're not making errors, you're not growing. If you're an artist that never makes an error, then I don't know, you're some kind of god or something. Because every artist makes errors in their work. I believe every artist probably is looking at their work and examining how they can improve. If they've become honest with themselves, if they're at a point in their creative process where they're actually honest with themselves. So yeah, that's what I would say. Munit.kala from Instagram. Would you be willing to do a battle scene from Wheel of Time? I think that would be awesome. Yeah, I think that would be awesome too. There's actually, I was chatting with a friend yesterday on Google Chat or whatever, and we were kind of talking about creating these pieces and stuff. But I was talking about creating these Wheel of Time pieces that I've been working on. And it's kind of a similar answer to one of the other ones. My other answers is that I just don't know if I'm confident or competent enough yet to do like a big battle scene. I would love to get to a point where I could confidently do a sweeping kind of battle scene from the Wheel of Time that carries all the nuance and character and place and story that I would want it to. It'd be like a really incredible storytelling and setting and backgrounds and character and costume design, and all of those pieces would come into that. It would be really intense. I think it'll be interesting too, like the show's probably going to come out in a year or whatever, and once that's out and we start seeing some of that stuff on screen, the impulse to want to create scenes like that might die, because we'll start to see it on screen and it'll sort of be actualized for us. So I may not feel a pull to recreate something that's already there. Maybe what I'll do as a study is take some of those scenes and then try to paint them. So take a still shot from the show and try to paint something from that as a study piece. That could be a thing. I don't know. The challenge for me is my art is largely, these art pieces are largely a side endeavor for me. There's something that I do in my spare time, and I'm kind of interested in a piece taking me like no longer than a week, hopefully, because I like to produce, as much as I can. If I created a piece that was like Tarwin's Gap, for example, from the Wheel of Time, they would be crazy. I love that scene in the Eye of the World. It's really cool, and I would love to see it, but I just feel like that would be months of work for me with the time that I have to allot to this stuff. I just don't know if I have that level of focus and attention, and then the skills required to pull that off. It'd be really hard. The next series of questions actually comes from one person, and I'm very grateful for my patrons. This is a patron. He runs a Wheel of Time information channel on YouTube called Unraveling the Pattern. And his name's Lauren. And you should definitely check him out on YouTube. I will put a link here. He is awesome. His work is really good. He's a motion designer, and so he creates stuff that is really exciting and fun to look at, but also very informative. It takes him a little while to get his videos done, which I completely understand. Being an animator and running an animation studio in my full-time job, I completely understand the level and volume of work that it takes. But I want to say thanks, Lauren, for giving me this list of questions. There's a lot here, so that'll help me kind of get through 90 minutes of talking. So I appreciate it. I appreciate your support on Patreon. I appreciate you, liking my work and asking to use it in your videos. It's really cool. The Wheel of Time community online has been really tremendous in that kind of respect. I've noticed there's a lot of camaraderie, and I feel like it's a healthy online community, if there's anything like that. A lot of very encouraging and engaged people. And so I appreciate that. Yeah. Anyways, so getting to your questions, Lauren. So about how long does it take you to create a commission or Wheel of Time image of a character? So it fluctuates. Some of the pieces that are more of a true sort of portrait, sort of from like a bust up, those will be anywhere between 3 to 7 hours, kind of, in that type of a window. And then ones that are sort of like the portrait I did of Rand, where he's standing in front of the dragon banner, or even the one where he's becoming the Karakarn and he's shirtless, he's doing some channeling and stuff. Those take quite a bit longer, because there's more costuming. I'm thinking more about costume design and figure work and body position, body language, what the image is saying. It takes a little bit more compositing of photo reference ahead of time. So those can be anywhere between 10 to 25-ish hours or something like that. And that's partly a byproduct of my process. I'm slow. I'm kind of a slow worker. I'm still unconfident. Like I said, I'm lacking confidence. And so I was talking about this with my business partner today. I feel like, looking at Gregory Manches's work, I feel a little bit like I tend to over-render stuff. And it's a little bit of a fear response, because I feel unconfident and worried that the viewer won't quite understand what I'm trying to do. So I sort of overcompensate for that through rendering and trying to make everything very concrete and depicted in a very solid and finished feeling image, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, I guess. Rendering is not terrible, but I do feel like it can sometimes produce a stilted image that feels like it's kind of lacking a little bit of life. And I don't really want that. I want my stuff to have energy and life to it. When I used to work traditionally with paint, with acrylics, I did a lot of, my brush strokes were quite a bit looser. You can kind of see it in the background here. There's a painting I did at a workshop that I attended of Sir Winston Churchill. And it's quite loose. The brush strokes in it are very loose. Even the coloring is kind of not quite accurate to human skin tone. But there's something kind of energetic and exciting about it that I like. I don't know why when I get into the digital space, I feel like I'm pulling away from that a little bit. It's probably a byproduct of the medium. And I probably need to not zoom in as much, as maybe part of the thing. And that was kind of one of the things with this piece. As I was working on it, I was cognizant of, partly because I was recording my screen. I didn't want you guys, the viewers' experience, to be this when they're watching me paint it on YouTube here. So I purposefully kind of kept it zoomed to a certain zoom level. for the most part. And I think that that's like actually a healthy way to, well, it is a healthy way to work. If you're doing digital painting, you shouldn't be zooming in so that you're at like the minutia of, detailing somebody's eye. I don't want to work that way. I think I do sometimes get caught up in that because I want, like I said, I want people to be able to read this stuff really well at first glance. I know that you can achieve that though without getting super detailed. There would be two benefits from that. I think the work would have more energy and time. So it would cut my production time maybe a third, let's say. But then again, that's maybe partly more of a byproduct of my level of confidence and my skill where it's at right now. As I grow and get better, that as my skill increases, my time should decrease, hopefully. So it should be kind of like the graph should look something like this, hopefully. As the skill level increases, my time of effort slowly decreases. And as I get more skilled, my time decreases and decreases. Kind of like at a certain point, they're going to converge and then break off from each other. Yeah, and I think there is a bit of a philosophical component to that answer too, in terms of what do I want my work to look like and how do I want it to feel and how do I want it to convey the stories that I'm trying to tell. And I've been inspired lately by a number of different artists, but like Greg Manchess is like a target for me, for sure. So how much of my time on a piece is research or finding reference images, and how much is actual painting? So those numbers that I threw out previously are more specifically related to painting. So my time, the amount of time it takes for me to paint something. That said, I haven't really broken it out, but there are components to that are me like, so some of that time is me fiddling with the photo reference and compositing stuff and getting things ready, specifically in relationship, to the Wheel of Time stuff. Because the Wheel of Time stuff is a composite of actors' faces, typically, sometimes a body. So the Rand piece was him. I messed around with his arm and hand position, so just kind of manipulated the photos a little bit. I took a face off a different photo of him and integrated it into the body. So I'm kind of Frankensteining some things together. But usually with the Wheel of Time stuff, I'm finding a photo of the actor where I really like the expression and the feel of the face. And then I'm pulling that and sometimes Frankensteining it with photos that I take or photos of them in other positions. And so there is a bit of, it's probably, I would say, like on an 8-hour piece, I might spend an hour and a half. Yeah. Let's say an 8-hour piece is actually a 10-hour piece. I'm spending maybe maybe 3 hours fiddling with that stuff. And then sometimes fighting with it in the middle of a project too, where I may have to change the face out because it's not working, or find new reference or take new reference photos for a fold in in clothing or something that's not working out, and I have to adjust things or get more reference because I'm not able to sort of see it with what the existing reference is. So I would say it's probably like 85%. The process of a piece is probably 85% painting, 15% to 20% reference research. Even like researching with these, like researching the characters, what they look like, revisiting the text and trying to wrap my head around how Robert Jordan described them. Yeah, it's an interesting process for sure. I enjoy it. It's a little bit of like portraiture and design and invention, or like concept design, kind of costuming design. It's pretty fun. How often do I start over? Because I'm working digital, I don't often have to start over. There are times, like I'm working on a commission right now, where this one's been pretty tricky because, yeah, I'm compositing a few photos together and stuff. And one of the characters, the face just was not working out. One of the people, so I had to find another photo of her, and then bring that in, and then kind of start over. And I was probably like 35 to 40% finished rendering her face, like getting it to a state of like pretty good rendering. So that was that's a bit of a loss. It doesn't happen often, but I would say maybe like 10% of the time I get through partway through a piece and then have to pivot on it and make some changes, or like I'm trying to think if I've ever like abandoned a piece. I don't think so. I have with analog stuff. There's a lot of times with analog work where I'm working on a composition and then I'm not enjoying it, so I just have to cast it aside and start again. The benefit of digital is I can move things around and adjust the compositions and really tweak things the way I want. It's way more malleable in that respect. So there's that. Do I ever get a good chunk of a piece and then have to scrap it or start over? Yeah. So I basically answered that, I think. What are my favorite things to paint? So I love painting the human figure and portraits. I think my interest and my goals are to work more and more at fantasy art, and so to keep working on fantasy painting would be great, whether it's Wheel of Time stuff or other fan art stuff. Like I've done a little bit of Stormlight Archives art. Really love Brandon Sanderson's writing and his work. I'd love to do some Mistborn stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing some stuff from was it the King Killer Chronicles, Kavoth, Patrick Rothfuss. Wouldn't mind doing some stuff from that series. But like these are all sort of my sort of fan-based pieces. I really want to continue to pursue doing some of my own work. It's a bit of a tricky. It's kind of weird. So, well, it's not weird. I like doing the Wheel of Time stuff. It's there's benefits to doing work that is from a pre-existing intellectual property. In sort of like in terms of building an audience and stuff, and that's part of the reason why I started doing the Wheel of Time stuff because I wanted to see the actors as the characters. One of the challenges that I had, and I kind of talked about this on the Dusty Wheel interview that I did with Matt Hatch over at the Dusty Wheel. Innkeeper, if you happen to have time and you watch this, thank you for having me there. It was really, really cool. Really enjoyed myself. And as I said on that interview, I really wanted to see the actors as the characters. So when they started casting them, I really wanted to see them as the characters. It was kind of a wish list thing for me. So that's kind of why I started doing the paintings. So yeah, I would like to keep working on Wheel of Time stuff and working on my own fantasy artwork and build up a body of work around fantasy themed content, I think is what I would say. I am, like, after listening to Bobby Chiu, I often go through these phases where I kind of do some visioning and planning for my career and life and goals and stuff like that. And he was responding to one of the callers, I think, and he was just talking about a 10-year plan. What's your 10-year plan? And what is worth spending 10 years of your life on? And when he put it that way, I was like, whoa, what is worth spending 10 years of my life on? It's a pretty intense question. So there's sort of aspects of this for me. I work full time running a business doing illustration, well, animation primarily, but illustration work in there too, and a little bit of graphic design too. That's like my day to day. And I endeavor to keep that going and keep it healthy so that it can provide for my family. I mean, clearly that's a priority for me, is to provide for my family. And I don't see, maybe I'm like just not optimistic enough or whatever, but I don't see my fantasy art painting replacing my income. It's just the reality of things. And so for the next 10 years, I need to focus on that still. I need to focus on building that and doing what I can through that to provide for my family. And hopefully to create some really cool stuff along the way and do some really neat stuff. My business partner and I have been kind of talking about that question in our own sort of work over the past few days. Like, what is our 10-year goal right now? We do that at the studio too. We kind of go through these visioning sessions. So right now we're just kind of reevaluating, like, what are we aiming at for the next 10 years? And I think we have a good plan and a good direction for stuff. And it ties into this fantasy art that I'm doing. We're working on some intellectual properties and trying to get some all ages graphic novels is kind of what we've been working on with our IPs. But they're all sort of like kind of in the realm of fantasy, which is cool. Two novels that I've been writing are both fantasy. One would be more targeted at an older audience. One would be more targeted at middle grade. But yeah, and I think like in terms of like a 10-year plan for this kind of work, like my extracurricular creative work, doing this painting stuff, I need to sit down and really evaluate, like, what is my 10-year goal? What do I want to see happen out of this? Some like aspirations, I don't know. What are some aspirations that I have? I mean, it would be super cool to be getting paid for this kind of work on a regular basis, doing fantasy art for book covers or like just commissions or whatever. I think it would be really cool to get to speak at some conferences, maybe just build up a strong enough body of work that I can inspire other artists. That's a part of kind of my general mandate with all this extracurricular social media stuff, my YouTube channel and everything. I want to be a resource. Ultimately, eventually, I'd love to be a resource for younger or beginning creatives. A lot of the content that I put up on my YouTube channel is under a playlist called Failing Towards Success. And it's the whole idea and mindset of like every piece of art that I create is a stepping stone, or every project that I work on is a stepping stone towards succeeding. And every project inherently has some level of failure in it. And that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that. It's part of the reality of being a creative. And it's how, like I said earlier, it's kind of those mistakes are how we grow, hopefully. Sometimes the growth is quick, and sometimes it's like, we're sort of plateauing, and maybe we even take a few steps down as we fail, and we're just like not finding that growth. I kind of think of it a little bit as like similar to exercising or working out. One of the things that what I do in my life is I try to stay physically active. It's for my mental health, but also for like physical well-being, because I sit at my desk so much in a day and during a week. I'm fairly sedentary in my general lifestyle. I mean, I do live on a little acreage and I kind of have to go outside and do work around the property sometimes, but in general, fairly sedentary. And all the kind of research and stuff that they're coming out with now around sitting and stuff is that it's really bad for your body to do it for long periods of time. I should also get like a stand-up desk. That would be probably helpful. One that can adjust maybe eventually. But I liken the growth as a creative similar to growth in physical capacity. So without the labor and the work, we don't grow. And sometimes in that process of growing physically in terms of strength, or if you're trying to grow in your endurance or whatever, like I ran a half marathon last year for the first time, and that was super intense. It took a lot of training to get to the point where I felt confident that I could do it. And there were times where I was like, just didn't feel like I was gaining any progress in all the training that I was doing. But what I've seen is that over time, even with those pockets of dips where things aren't going well, there is a general trend towards growth. And of course, I'm 42 now, so I don't know. I like to believe that I'm going to be, when I was in my 30s, I said I'm going to be the fittest I've ever been when I'm 40. I kind of feel like I did do that. I achieved that goal. And now being 42, I'm like, can I be even fitter than I am now when I'm 50? Maybe. But that starts to shrink. Those possibilities start to shrink with age, I think. And that's just a reality that I live in, the world that we live in. Our bodies are finite, and there's only so much mileage that we can put onto them before they start to kind of diminishing returns. I hope it's not the same with creative stuff. I really want to continue creating. I was talking with my wife yesterday, and I was just saying, like, Kim, 42, and I'm struggling right now to kind of grow as a creator, as an artist. And I find it's a bit of like a challenge for me. For sure, it's a challenge. But I just said, like, imagine if talking about 10-year goals, imagine if for the next 10 years, I stay consistent with my practice and I continue to create at the pace that I'm creating at for 10 years. So 10 years of that kind of effort. What does my work look like 10 years from now when I'm 52 and I've invested that time into my practice? Kind of exciting. It's kind of exciting to me. I kind of feel like that guy would look back at the work that I'm doing now and be like, wow, look how far I've come. I hope, right? And then my hope is that that kind of a trend would continue, because I feel like creativity is something that, as long as my faculties are there, I don't go loopy or lose my mind or get early onset dementia or something. Who knows? But if everything works properly, physically and mentally, and I'm able to continue at that kind of pace that I'm at and continue to practice, 30 years from now when I'm 72, I don't know, I feel like, oh, that could be pretty cool. And hopefully, if I continue doing that over 30 years, I'm continually growing. And I think I will. I've always had a mindset of growing and challenging myself and trying the next thing and trying to get better and not just stagnating. So it should trend that way. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Like, hopefully I can continue to see growth, and the things that I want to paint, like talking about painting like Tarwin's Gap from Wheel of Time, some kind of big epic battle scene. Maybe then, by that time, I'll be like, yeah, no problem. I'll do that. Right? Right now, it's like, that seems just super overwhelming and unachievable for me. But who knows? Time will tell. What other artists are my inspiration? This is a great question. So obviously, Greg Manchess, I've already shared him with you. Go check him out. Do it. He's really good. I recently came across an artist who does a lot of Magic the Gathering work and Dungeons and Dragons work. His name is Jesper Icing. And like, amazing. It blows my mind that there's a lot of very, very talented artists out there doing really fun, very talented and accomplished artists doing a ton of like fantasy based stuff and fun kind of nerdy stuff. It's just really, really cool. These artists are like masters. Their work is masterful. Greg Manchest's work is masterful. Jesper Eising's work is masterful. Like, just blows my mind. Bobby Chiu I really appreciate because of his work ethic and everything that he does for the creative community. Amazing guy, solid artist, does some really, really cool monster designs and character and creature designs and stuff. Really respect his work. It's really good. I actually had a chance to meet him when I was in San Diego 2 years ago. My business partner and I went down there. We were pitching a comic book that we were working on at Comic-Con. I got a chance to just briefly talk with him, and just a genuine, kind man, but like really solid artist and a leader in the community. He's an inspiration for sure. John Foster is a really big inspiration for me. I love his book cover work. His paintings are gorgeous. Really, really intense, amazing compositional work, and rich texture and color. Just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous work. Marko Djurjevic is amazing. He's one of those people that's got, I believe he has a very high skill ceiling, like innate talent ceiling. He's just tremendous at drawing and painting, and he'll tell you that he never went to school for it. And then right after saying that, he will say that he sat around and drew people, which I'm like, okay, well that's studying. So sitting and drawing people from life or from photographs and stuff is studying. So if you do that a whole bunch, you're going to grow. You're going to start to see better, and you're going to build a visual library where you don't even need people in front of you anymore, and you can just draw them. But he's amazing. Also, I mentioned him already, Matt Rhodes. He's a local Edmonton artist, works for BioWare. I think he's an art director right now, but for years and years he did create concept art. And he's tremendous. Incredible storytelling, character design, concept design, environments, beautiful lighting, impeccable anatomy and structure to the human figure. Just gorgeous work. Really, really amazing. And yeah, I definitely recommend checking him out. Let's see here. Stan Prokopenko. I think he goes like online. He's called Proko Paint, or just Proko. Anyways, really, really amazing portraiture figure work. More classical in his approach, but really rich teaching, and he does a lot of work with figure drawing. So teaching and giving information about figure drawing and anatomy. Kind of like a master in that arena. Really inspired by him. Ian McKeag is like an inspiration from a concept art perspective. Really love his work. Let me see here. I really like some of the Wheel of Time artists. Ariel Burgess is an inspiration to me. She's done so much work for the Wheel of Time. Really impactful work, and has like kind of set in many ways, some standards for how people see characters in the Wheel of Time. And she did, like, the volume of work that she did around the Wheel of Time is just crazy, and accomplished work too, like nice looking work. There's a artist on Instagram, Mai Narev, M-A-I Narev, I think is how it goes, .Narev. I think she does some really beautiful fan art, and just really respect her work. From the comic book side of things, Marko Djurjevic has worked in comic books too. One of the things I wanted to mention about Jesper Eising, he also wrote a novel. And so some of these guys are like, some of these people are sort of like Renaissance to me. They kind of like a Renaissance mindset where it's like, I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to be an inventor, I'm going to do all these things. And I think that inspires me. I think it's like an inspirational kind of learning attitude, which is really, I respect, and I think it's really cool. Let me think. I forget. I don't know if I just was saying somebody else. Oh shoot, what's her name? I have her book here. Give me one sec. Yeah. Terrell Whitlatch. Terrell Whitlatch is amazing. And definitely worth checking out. So she's really cool because she's got like a background, I believe, in animal science or biology or something like that. And so she combines her discipline of understanding animals, and look at these beautiful drawings. It's crazy. She mixes in her understanding of animals with creature design. And so she'll take animals and kind of pull from them in different ways, and then do these like really intense, amazing creature designs, which are just mind-blowing. And it's not just like, here's the creature. She like breaks them down. So she's like, what would the skeleton structure of the creature be? It's cool. And then what would the anatomy, like the musculature, be? How would they function, right? How would the muscles, extrapolating from existing animals, how would the muscles and stuff lay on the creature's bone structure? And she does like dinosaurs and studies all of those, birds, horses, contemporary animals like horses, right? Just all these incredible. So yeah, somebody definitely worth learning from. Actually, on schoolism.com, they've got a number of artists on there who have done tutorials that you can purchase and go through some classes with them. And they actually have like, you can do it, they run them as like workshops and stuff. You can get feedback on your work and they can walk you through stuff. But yeah, I picked this. I actually had a chance to talk to her in San Diego as well. No, it was Calgary Comic Con a few years back in Calgary, Alberta here. And bought this book while I was there because she is just amazing. And she's a wonderful, like, gracious lady. Really enjoyed talking to her. She was willing to give time and listen and dialogue and converse. She wasn't just talking at people. She was very like conversational. She's a really wonderful lady. So yeah, Terrell Whitlatch is amazing. Jake Parker is inspiration. He's a little bit more cartoony in his artwork, but just an incredible work ethic. He's the guy that started Inktober. So Inktober, I don't know if you're not familiar with it. Basically, every October, he puts out prompts for drawing, and the idea is to, the idea is to do a daily ink drawing of something, and so it's really cool. He's kind of now created this massive following of people that are doing that every October, which I dig that. It's kind of cool. I've done it a couple times. I did a crazy large piece, which you can see on my Instagram. One year I thought it would be really fun to do like every day is a square of a larger piece, and each square kind of eventually composes this bigger image, and I scanned them in and then posted them daily on my Instagram. And so if the stars are aligned and I've got the right amount of posts on my Instagram feed, if you scroll down, there's a section where you can just see this whole image in its full composition, which was a really fun exercise. It's a scene from later on in the story of that I've been writing about Jack the possum. The story's called Possum Awesome, and it's a scene where him and his cohorts are fighting a dragon, and like a dragon in this story world, and it's kind of minions. They're all servants of the evil entity in the story. And then there's like these really big jackrabbits and the possums, and then some rats. Anyways, it's a crazy story. If you become a patron, actually, you can access. I finished editing and putting together the beginning hook for that book, and I've got another like 40,000 words written, which I haven't touched yet. But you can actually access that PDF on my Patreon page if you ever wanted to read it, And you could become a patron for $1 a month and just download it and read it and then cancel your Patreon or whatever. But yeah, whatever. It's just the beginning hook, so you're not going to get like a full story. So that kind of sounds like a stupid idea now that I say it, but whatever. It's there. And I am going to finish it eventually. I might actually adapt it into a graphic novel. I haven't decided on that yet. But with all the graphic novel writing that we're doing, I'm getting more versed in writing stories for graphic novels, and I think it would work really well as a graphic novel. Let's see here. What else? Who else is an inspiration? I mean, I love some of the old masters paintings, the way that they paint, John Singer Sargent, Norman Rockwell, Leyendecker. Yeah, those guys all, I really respect the work that they did. The brothers Hildebrandt, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they did a bunch of fantasy art over the years, and there's a lot of stuff in there that I I absorbed a lot as a young man. I have like a whole series of cards downstairs in a box somewhere, but I've got their card set with all their art on it. James Gurney is incredible. He's a master, modern day master, and he works traditionally as well, a lot of gouache and watercolor stuff. But man, so good. I was watching a video of him the other day, watching him paint. He's just sitting and waiting for the plane that he was going to go on to launch. And he's sitting there painting the plane that was going to take him on a trip. And he recorded the process of him painting the plane in his little like watercolor sketchbook. And he used gouache and watercolors and just like, I don't know, so masterfully skillful. And I think like if you notice earlier in the video, if you've crazily for some reason watched all of this and listened to me, I thank you first of all. subscribe to my channel, find me on Instagram, all that stuff, please. I am actually going through a deliberate sort of like push right now to try and grow my social media, so anything you guys want to do to help that, I appreciate it. Anyways, if you remember earlier, I kind of corrected myself because I was talking about, I think, Marko Djurdjevic, and I said that he was like talented, or I don't know, one of the artists. I was saying they were talented. And that kind of bugs me. Talent is kind of an amorphous thing. So everybody has, same as athletes, everybody has like a certain level of innate natural capacity for things. So you could realistically say everybody has talent because everybody has a certain amount of it for given tasks. I am not talented in the ways of like organization and being on top of like organizing stuff, or like math. Like those are things that are hard for me. So my natural ability for those is not really great. I would even argue that my natural talent for art is not really awesome. I spent most of my childhood trying to emulate my brother, who has a high level of innate talent. He was like very talented, very gifted artist when he was younger, and I tried to do what he was doing, and I just couldn't because I was younger. Also, just didn't have as much natural capacity as him. But chasing him and fighting and climbing that mountain taught me perseverance and the ability to really push myself to continue to try to grow. I think to say an artist is talented, or when you see somebody's beautiful work online and you're like, wow, you're so talented. I mean, of course we appreciate it because I understand that not everybody understands the language and meaning of these things in the context of, specifically in the context of art. I'm talking about art. So I do appreciate the compliment. I understand that what they're saying is they really appreciate my work and think it's good. That's cool. But I think like talent is just one component of someone being successful at what they're doing. It's a starting point, and hard work will beat talent every time. I actually made a video about that It's on my channel, on my YouTube channel. Maybe I'll put a notation in here about it. You can check that out if you want to. But hard work will always win out over talent in the long run. I actually know a lot of talented people who just kind of fizzle out because a lot of people have a high level of talent because they fizzle out because they don't get the same kind of dopamine hit. They don't feel the same reward as someone who's not as talented, who has to really work at it. There's like a correlation between working hard and achieving something and then wanting to do it again. I really believe that. And if you have to work hard for something and then you achieve it, it's like, oh, I did that, I got to do that again. You know, you kind of get this like dopamine hit and it's like, I want to do that again. I think that's like a byproduct of that. And if I look at my life as a creative, I liken it to my younger years, my journey with sports. I loved basketball, but I wasn't naturally gifted towards sports. I was like really little, super skinny kid who just always got cut from teams. I never got to play on sports teams until I was in high school, and I just barely made it by the skin of my teeth in grade 10. But all that time leading up to grade 10, I worked. I would spend hours shooting around, practicing dribbling drills, doing all this stuff to try and get better. And that eventually I got better. And then grade 11 and 12, and I went back for a second year of grade 12 because I had to upgrade because I wasn't that smart. I probably didn't apply myself hard enough to my studies. But grade 11, 12, and 13, I was the MVP of my team because I worked hard. And that work ethic, I think, carries over into a lot of other areas of my life. Anyways, that's a long rant on inspiration. I think that, I guess what I see in these artists, like when I look at Greg Manches's work, that's a ton of work ethic to be able to do something like that. He took a year to do all the paintings, and he said it was, did he say it was 7 years of preparation? Probably like conceived the idea, mulled it around, spent a couple years like getting all the thumbnails and stuff together, the writing together, piecing it all together, figuring out how that was all going to flow, and then he took the time and went after it. It's crazy. I know how hard that kind of stuff is because I tried to do some writing and stuff. It's impressive. It's amazing. Anyways, I better move on to the next question here. Yeah, so the next question was, who do you emulate or try to be like? I think I've kind of answered those things already. And what is it about the Wheel of Time specifically that I love? I love the writing and the story. I think it was like during the the Dusty Wheel interview when he was doing the speed round, he was like, what would you say to somebody if you were going to try and convince them to, why should they read the Wheel of Time? I'm not going to try to emulate my answer, but it was an off-the-cuff answer. And I think if you go there and listen to my answer, that's why. It's just this incredibly well-written, well-crafted story. And I love fantasy. I feel like fantasy stories have an innate aspect of truth to them. So I believe, I'm a believer, so I have like a concrete grasp on what I believe. I have faith, if you would say. And I think that fantasy stories, for everything that I've read of fantasy stories, I'm not as well read as most people out there, but I believe that the reason that the really good ones resonate with people and why they do really well is because there is an aspect of truth within fantasy stories. And I think it comes down to the hero's journey and how that sort of like ties into aspects of truth and character that really resonates with all of our internal journeys. And I think there's like something in fantasy stories where we project ourselves into those stories and we want to be a part of it. We might even want to be the hero because I think we all want to be that way. I think we all want to seek truth and we all want to better the world around us and improve the world around us and feel like we're part of a bigger story. So that's why I love the Wheel of Time for that. It really scratches all those itches for me. And the writing is just masterful. The world building is crazy. It's amazing. It's an incredible feat of writing and storytelling. And in that is like an incredibly deep well of art opportunities. Like, I could mine the Wheel of Time for the rest of my life to create art from it and never run out of something to create. So, I mean, that's super cool. It's visually very compelling. And I think there's like Matt Hatch from the Dusty Wheel talks about metaphysics of it and stuff. There's a lot of metaphysical stuff going on that is like really fantastic, right? Magical and otherworldly, that is really, really fun to try to wrap my head around and try to like put it into some kind of visual context. I like it a lot. Let's see here. Which of my current pieces is my favorite? I think I'm like, I mean, I've always been kind of partial to Rand from the Wheel of Time. So I think the piece I did where he's wearing his red kind of fancy outfit there, I really like. I'm really proud of that piece. It's also fun because it's using the banner that's behind him is from a painting that I did when I started reading the Wheel of Time, the Wheel of Time, which was like, I think, I don't know, 4 years ago. I still haven't looked at that. And I ran into this question at the Dusty Wheel too, and I couldn't remember, but I think it's been like 5 years or something. And I did a painting after I finished. It's from the end of The Eye of the World, where they reveal the dragon banner. Sorry, spoilers. But so I used the banner. I pulled the banner out of that digital painting and I incorporated it in this one, which is kind of, for me, kind of fun because it's like a bridge of my creative journey, where like kind of like from a few years back and now, and they're sort of mashed together. The current painting of him is in the foreground. The banner's kind of in the background as this sort of like beacon of what is and what was. I don't know, it's getting kind of meta, but I like that. I don't know. For me, it was just kind of a fun process and a neat way to integrate some stuff that I'd done. I'm looking over here because I've got this acrylic rendering of it. I ordered this through a company called Poster Jack. And it's you can see it's shiny. It's this really, really neat acrylic piece. It's kind of like thick. So it's like an acrylic. Let's see if I can. Yeah, there you go. It's like a thick acrylic piece. So yeah, I was really happy with how that turned out. These are not cheap, but it's kind of a cool thing. And then they did like a really nice job of hanging it. So yeah, that's through Poster Jack. If you're interested in getting yourself something in an acrylic piece, you can hit them up and get something made. I don't have these on my Etsy store. If somebody wants it, you can contact me. We can talk about stuff, about a pricing on it or whatever. Let's see here. So yeah, that's kind of what I love about the Wheel of Time. Okay. So I think that's my current favorite piece. Sorry, got distracted. What's my least favorite piece that I've done currently? You know what? This sucks because it makes me kind of sad. I'm not super into my loyal rendering. I feel like I struggled with that one because I think there's going to be I honestly think there's going to be more CGI applied to the Ogier. I don't know. I was trying to depict him if they were to just use practical effects on the Ogier. So how to do that with like the big ears and the big droopy eyebrows, and like the kind of his description of like kind of having a broad nose. I don't know. I really struggled with it and conceptually. And I think if I had allowed myself to think more outside of that box and just be like, what does an ogier look like? I think I might have liked the piece more. The problem is I really wanted it to be representative of the actor. I think if I were to revisit that piece, I would maybe take the photo that I was working from and like totally manipulate it in Photoshop before I started painting, like almost like sculpt it in Photoshop, or maybe paint over it to create photo reference using his features. I don't know. Anyways, I think that's the one that I like the characterization in that piece where he's like sort of pulling this little book out of his pocket. He's kind of like, or putting it in or whatever. And the book is kind of like tiny and he's got these like big hands. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's not quite where I would want him to be. Let's see here. How do I stay positive as an artist and not let my insecurities affect my decisions? Man, it's hard. I'm not always positive as an artist. I think pretty much during every piece that I work on, I get to a point where I feel like a fraud and completely incapable and just like useless as an artist. I think there's a constant battle inside of me of insecurity and confidence. Uh, how do I stay positive? Well, I think in general, it's like I said. So for my life in general, I have to stay physically active. I try to make my faith like a center point of my life. I try to like be involved with my family as much as I can and spend time with them. And these things are like keep me grounded and I guess help make my art, not that it's less important, less weighty, I guess. Cuz I think of like in the current context that we're in, for example, I saw an Instagram post yesterday from my friend Jessica, who I consider her my friend just from the interactions that we had through. She got a commission work for me from me. It was that Min piece that I did recently, and I saw her. She's a frontline worker with healthcare, and I saw her post. It was a video of her daughter, little baby daughter, and she was just saying like she's not getting a lot of rest right now, and her daughter's teething and she's just feeling overwhelmed and stuff. And like I think I always try to put into context like the work that I do is not, it's not that it's inconsequential, but it's not an emergency, right? Like these people are dealing with life and death stuff, dealing with people sick all the time, and there's a lot of weight that they're carrying. So I don't know. I try to keep those things in context, and I think that helps me stay positive. You guys help me stay positive. I've seen like a huge benefit in growing a community. I just put a video up about it actually. It was the Min portrait. I did a process video, and then I talked about community and the importance of community, and I talked a lot about the Wheel of Time community on there and my patrons. Um, like as artists, there's a financial support component, which is really important for artists to have so that we can create stuff. But I kind of feel like even equal to that is artists need this sort of emotional, psychological support component, which comes through just interaction and engagement and praise and comments and sharing and all that stuff. It motivates us and it helps us stay positive. It helps me stay positive. So like well, on my Patreon account, when I post something and I see little hearts on there that my patrons like it, and they might even comment and say, hey, that looks good, or ask me a question or whatever. that stuff is just really important to me. I don't know how to describe it. I feel like it's I don't want to be I don't know, it's weird. I don't want to become dependent on an audience, but it is really, really important. And I think it's like your family's always going to like what you do, right? My wife, well, my wife is pretty critical of my work. She's an artist too, and she gives me some really, really honest feedback. Well, like my kids and my extended family and stuff are always going to be like, wow, great work, that's awesome, which is great. I appreciate that. But it just always feels a little bit like, well, they kind of have to say that. When you start getting like feedback from the community, from the public, and people like your work, it's really encouraging. It's like really, really encouraging, and it kind of feeds that fire and helps motivate me. I have mentors, and so there's people that I talk to. I'm part of an illustrator group in Central Alberta where we get together, try to get together once a month. It's a group of like professional illustrators. We all do from different kind of walks of the creative life of illustration. And we meet once a month and we share what we're working on and we talk about the industry, we talk about work. That's super valuable for me. It feeds me. They're an amazing support network too. I think artists need a lot of support. We're like emotionally challenged people sometimes. We're very emotional people. I think my experience has been that we're emotional people. And so having a community is really key and so important to that health. Staying physically active for me helps me stay mentally well. I've recognized in my life that if I don't stay physically active, I can tend towards depression. I was mildly depressed for a while in 2012. We moved out to this acreage, and just that change of lifestyle and the demands around it, I stopped working out, stopped exercising for about 4 months, and it was like middle of November, and I just was like starting to cry for no reason and just feeling depressed. And my wife was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I'm like crying. And I went to my doctor, and he was great. Credit to him. He was like, "Well, I can give you some drugs, or you can start exercising, get rest, take some vitamin D, eat properly, and just take care of those fundamental things." And I started that, and I felt great. It took a little while, but it completely went away. It completely alleviated those depression symptoms. Mind you, it was like a mild depression. I wasn't like chronically, like really, really heavily depressed. I'm not advocating that drugs are really, really bad or anything like that. I just know for me, that's like a key component of my sanity and my mental well-being. So, how do I stay motivated? It can be hard. There's times where like, because I work full time creatively in a creative industry, there can be times where creative energy is lacking for this kind of work, this extracurricular work. I also can get like, I struggle with attention. I think I do, I kind of have like, at least I think at least creatively, I have a little bit of ADHD where I want to do everything, right? Like I've got 2 novels that are kind of on the shelf right now that are both like in states of near completed first drafts. I've got, a couple graphic novels that my business partner and I are writing, 3 graphic novels that we're working on. I've got all these paintings. I've got my YouTube channel that I'm trying to do content for every now and then. I want to like continue to build out. I did a book, like a first pass on a book on the basics of portraiture. I want to flash that out just away from just basics to like comprehensive. Oh, sorry, my battery thing just went. A comprehensive guide on drawing portraiture. So I got like a lot of things on the go all the time. And so sometimes I hit a wall where it's like I'm not really completing stuff in my extracurricular time because I've got too many interests. And so everything's in like these little states of incompleteness. And that drives me a little bit batty sometimes. I get a little crazy. I need to I've tried to just focus on one thing. I was a year ago maybe, I was like, I'm just going to focus on this one thing for 6 months. I'm not allowed to do anything else. I ended up doing nothing. I got like depressed. I got like frustrated and down, and I just didn't want to do anything. So my motivation completely waned. I think that my motivation comes through chaos a little bit, through being in a bunch of different things, and sort of the energy that I get from creative thinking and creative energy. So I think that kind of helps me stay motivated. Stories help me stay motivated. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what all the pieces are, but those are some of them. There's probably some that I'm missing. Do I find having a Patreon or a following or an quote unquote audience of fans makes it easier or harder to create? It's a bit of a double-edged sword. It's like I said, I'm finding huge benefits from the audience, like a lot of value as a creator, having feedback and people to bounce stuff off of and to comment on work and just to share this journey with. I really value the pieces that come out of that. I think less problematic than the audience is the aspect of social media. That's what I would say. Social media is a challenge and a problem in a way because it takes up time, right? So to do this kind of stuff is really fun and engaging, and I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't want to do it. But it can pull away from the creative energy. There's been a few days kind of lately where I'm like, I really need to paint, but I've just worked all day in front of the computer, and then I've done like an hour or so of like managing social media stuff, and I'm like, oh, I'm just tired. And then I don't kind of sit down and do the creative work. So I would say it's like a double-edged sword. There's times when it's really, really beneficial, and then times when it's tough. And I don't think I've figured out the strategy yet around all that, because like I'm fairly new to having an audience. I didn't really have like a really good Instagram audience until I started doing this Wheel of Time stuff like 10 months ago or whatever. And so it's kind of a bit of a new experience for me. I am intentional right now about growing my audience for a couple of reasons. One is I want to grow it because I want to find more people to engage with my work. I do want to make a little bit of money off the work that I'm doing, and I've found that having a bit of an audience helps that for sure. And I just want to have people to engage with and to be a part of something bigger than what I'm doing, like just the work that I'm doing. I think it's cool. I think that like being a part of the Wheel of Time community online and on Instagram and stuff has been really, really cool and really engaging and fun. So yeah, I think there's two sides to having an audience. I think if I had my preference, I would just have like all of my audience in Patreon. Like everybody was just in Patreon, and I didn't really have to do a bunch of other stuff, but they kind of feed into each other. I really have enjoyed my patrons, and I get a sense that like some of my patrons are family, right? So I've got like some cousins and stuff who have supported me from day one that I opened my Patreon account, and they don't really like comment and stuff very often on my stuff. I think they just love me, right? So that's kind of like great. That's like really kind of them and generous and totally not required or anything, but I'm like super grateful for that. It's really kind. And then I get people like that I don't know, that I've sort of only met through Patreon, that are very loyal to my work and to supporting me. And that it's really special. Like, I don't know. It's really special. And that motivates me. Like, those people motivate me for sure. And yeah, if I could get more people in there, that would be amazing. I think that like part of when I'm talking about kind of making money and having an audience helps facilitate that. I really, really, and I said this on the Dusty Wheel, I kind of feel like we're entering a time where, and I think I'm coining it. I think I said in my last video, I'm going to coin it this. Somebody's probably already said it, so this is probably nothing new. But I'm calling it like the neo-Renaissance phase of creativity, because Patreon and things like this are providing a means by which creators can directly connect with their audience. You can support creators directly through it, and it creates this immediate feedback loop between the creator and the consumer. And that to me is akin to not just the Renaissance period, but times past when artists were supported by patrons. And it could potentially afford the opportunity for creatives to specifically focus on what they want to create and have an audience that's excited about what they want to create. And so you have imagine an army of creatives that are creating for the sake of creating and the love of creating. And they're not like struggling with everything else in life. They're just living their life creating and making content that people want to consume and are excited about. And it's just this beautiful dance back and forth. I don't know. That excites me. That proposition excites me. And I think like if I could bring everybody into Patreon, then I have like this audience that's there that genuinely cares about my work, and I hope cares about my work and cares about me as a creative, not just the types of things that I'm creating. But I know that like right now I'm seeing with my Instagram and stuff, there's like a draw to my Wheel of Time work. So I'm getting an audience on Instagram because of my Wheel of Time work, and so they're coming for that. But I think some of them, when I post other stuff, they're engaging with that work too. And I think they're starting to see me as a creative, not just as a Wheel of Time fan artist, if that makes sense. And I think that's kind of like for me, I think that's for me, like that's a goal in regards to an audience or a following, is I would love to build this audience and following that appreciates my work for my work and for me, not just because it's Wheel of Time stuff or Stormlight Archive stuff or stuff that they're familiar with, but because it's my work and because it's exciting to them. And hopefully over time that will translate into further opportunities with my own intellectual properties, where maybe I'll find an audience that at that point maybe I'll have like a built-in audience for my own work, and they'll consider reading my novels, right, or my graphic novels, and that would be really tremendous. I think that's probably a lot of creators' sort of dream, right? Is to create something and have people want to consume it and be excited about it. So yeah, I think audiences are important. I think finding your audience is really important. I think that there's like one of the things that I've talked about with my illustrators group, kind of trying to strategize around this stuff, is to deliberately seek out a community that is excited about the same things you're excited about as a creative. So I've tapped into this thing where there's this audience pre-existing on social media and on the internet around the Wheel of Time, and I love the Wheel of Time and I'm excited about it. And so to create this content that then they get excited about, it creates this really nice feedback loop and mutual excitement about the work and about the story and about the TV show and about all that stuff. So there's this sort of like energy loop that's going, that sort of reciprocates back and forth between myself and my audience. And I think that's super cool because I've created work that's specifically targeted to their interests and my interests alike, right? So that's one thing I think is, in terms of audience, there's like an audience. I think there's an audience for everybody, and it's important to go find find that audience for your interests. So, well, that brings me to the end of my questions. The video is almost done here too, the illustration. So I think I'll come back right now to the errors question. So if you look at this drawing and you look at that, you can still see the reference photo in the corner there. Sorry, I'm looking down here because I've got it on my screen here. If you look at that, you can tell, maybe you can't tell, but when I look at that, I see, for example, her hand that's covering her eyes. The proportions of the forearm are incorrect. So her forearm is too long. And if you look at her wrist area specifically, you can kind of see that it's a little bit elongated and maybe a little bit curved, a little too long, and maybe some kind of curve going on there. And then sort of akin to that, her hand is a little bit too low towards her eyebrows as compared to the photograph. Her eye that's closest to us in my drawing is too large. So it almost looks like there's a weird kind of like fisheye lens thing going on where this eye is kind of like too far forward. And I've noticed that that's like a tendency in my work, is to kind of, when I'm drawing 3/4 views, I struggle with that, with those proportions. So I'm not surprised by that because it's something that I've battled with. There was a point in the process of the piece where I stopped and I kind of adjusted it because I recognized that it was a little bit too big, and it still is a little bit off. Her nose is a little too large in my piece, which is also a tendency that I have. And I tend to make this part of the face too long on people. And that might be a byproduct of my own face. I don't know if you can tell, but I've got like this like long, narrow face with like pretty long, like a pretty tall midsection to my face. And so I've sometimes, and of course I've got like a big forehead because my hair is receding. But I've kind of noticed that. I wonder if it's because of the structure of my own face that I have those tendencies. So there's that. And then some of the tonal relationships are a bit off, and it makes kind of some of the areas difficult to read. So if you look at her neck, behind her hand, like this area, and in the background, it's kind of like a little bit confusing where her clothing starts and ends and where her shoulder, her trapezius muscle is. And that's like a tonal issue. I didn't have time to adjust that. Excuse me. I didn't have time to adjust that or to address it because I was trying to keep it like legitimately within that 90-minute window. Because it's an exercise, right? So one of the things, like something like this is, for me, this is study, right? So this doesn't have to be like a finished, beautiful piece. This is study. And I hope to do this some more. It depends on time and capacities. But I love that Bobby Chiu threw this challenge out there because it's like I'm learning through the process. And I mean, it's a decent, don't get me wrong, I think it's a decent rendering. Like it's an okay piece. For 90 minutes, I'm not like, oh, I'm terrible. Like I can see things I need to improve, but for 90 minutes, I'm fairly satisfied with it. There are some pockets of it where I feel like the lighting is really nice. Some of the brush work is kind of looser because I was working quick, which I like. I like that loose brush work. But yeah, I think the biggest components are like kind of this nose face issue, the forearm, and then maybe by proxy of that, her head might be a little bit too far over. So like it might not be sitting quite right on her neck. Yeah, but those are just like little things that like I need to grow my seeing. And that's the whole point. Like as an artist, as a portrait artist or a figure artist or whatever, it's all about seeing. And so it's all about translating what we're seeing into a believable construct on a 2D plane. We're trying to trick the viewer into seeing something in 3 dimensions on a flat plane. And it's kind of cool. To me, it's sort of magical. And I think that's one of the things that I love about art and keeps bringing me back to art, is like this challenge, right? Of kind of creating this magic, this experience for people. And I think like with my Wheel of Time art or my fantasy art, it's like creating these little windows for people to see something magical that is like real, but not real, right? And hopefully to tell a story. I love telling stories, right? So that's kind of the goal with all these pieces. But yeah, there's also like some error. I mean, there's also some errors with like folds and structure of things a little bit. But those are like, I really think those are all just practice and flexing these muscles, right? The ability to render what I'm seeing, drawing, seeing, drawing, seeing, drawing, and translating that visual content into something that makes sense on the 2D plane. And I know that I've grown, like, since I've really delved deep into this portraiture study journey that I'm on. I've definitely seen growth, so I am hopeful that that will continue. Oh, sorry, can you hear my timer going off? I had a timer set for myself to stop working on the piece. So that's the end of the video. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'll just turn that off. So yeah, I don't know. I hope you like her. You can see her on screen here, and I'm like I said, I'm hoping to do a couple more of these. You know, keep kind of trying to work on this stuff, trying to work on growing as a creator. And I am still trying to do more Wheel of Time stuff. I am still open to commissions. So if you're interested in that, you can get in touch with me. We can try to negotiate something that works. I would invite you to like this video. Please leave me a comment below if there's something that you disagree with me about, or you want to talk further about, or whatever. I'd love to sort of chat with you through here, or you can reach me on Instagram. All my links are in the description below, so you can find me on all those places there. But your support really means a lot to me, helping me grow this channel, helping me grow my Instagram, and any kind of support you can give me through Patreon, or if you want to purchase something on my Etsy store, it really means a lot to me. It's like we were talking about, it keeps me motivated. So yeah, Patreon's a great place. I put my videos up there early and try to put all of my content up there before I post it on social media, so you would get kind of some behind the scenes stuff, some early images, early access to some of my content. And yeah, also please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please share my stuff too. Artists have a hard time getting our stuff out there. We try to spend more of our time creating than we do other stuff. And so audiences and communities are what we thrive on for our stuff to get out there. So I would appreciate your support with that. I've got a number of other videos that I need to get done and up, and those will just come as time allows. So thanks very much for sitting with me and watching this. If you stuck through to the end, you're incredible. Appreciate it. I sometimes wonder if I have an irritating voice or just too much of a monochromatic voice. But whatever, it is what it is. I can't change it. So if you stuck through this till the end, I appreciate you being here. And as I always say, until next time, be good to each other. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more content, please click one of the videos on the screen. If you'd like to be notified when all my videos go up, please click the bell icon. And if you'd like to follow me on social medias, you can find me on patreon.com/Corey Lansdell. I'm at Corey Lansdell on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook as well. Until next time, you guys, be good to each other.